movies aren't going anywhere. People are going to keep making more and more movies. So the result as filmmakers to think about is there's going to be less distribution. The chances of your movie getting picked up and someone touching you on the shoulder at a film festival and saying, hey, here's an offer, are very low. So as producers, as filmmakers, realize that when you get involved with a film, you're going to be involved with that film for a very long time. It's not just going to be like, oh, I passed it off to some other one who's going to take care of everything. More than likely, you're going to have to figure out how to get that movie into theaters. So what was a 1 year to 18-month process of producing a movie just became a 3 to 4 year thing, where you're going to have to maybe raise money for marketing, maybe raise your P&A funds. So really love that project because it's going to be with you for a long time.
I think all of this builds to a question about how maybe VOD and non-theatrical is going to come into play much more for some films in coming years. And do you think it's going to impact every tier of the business, or is it just sort of that lower end of indies that are going to have this long tail and find a very niche audience online or on VOD? Any thoughts?
I sure hope VOD starts to rock out because the video business as we know it, first of all, the video business as we know it in Italy, Spain, Russia, Eastern Europe is almost non-existent. And obviously the video business here in America and Canada, I mean, it's still a viable business, but I mean, I'm not really sure that, if we're sitting here in this room, I'm not sure 5 years from now or 10 years from now, there's going to be a physical DVD business. I can only tell you that my 25-year-old and 27-year-old, when I tell them I'm going to the store and go buy some used CDs or DVDs, they look at me like, what planet am I from? Okay, I mean, so I'm sort of being guided by them, and I think it's, the physical DVD/CD is, going to be extinct. It's a melting, it's an ice cube.
And I think that question we get asked that a lot when people come sit down with us at markets, and it really depends on the time horizon. Like today, is VOD really driving pricing? Not really. I don't think it might be sort of an added incentive, especially in some territories where it's stronger than others, the UK, France, places like that. But it's not, if you pulled it out, it's not like the price point on what you're selling your movie for is going to change dramatically today. I mean, will that be different in 3 years? Probably. I think VODs are really much more exciting now for the movies that don't get big theatrical distribution because there's still a way to get your movie out. And like you were saying, Michael, if you've worked on a movie for as long as you have, you want people to see it. At any channel to get that out to as many people as possible, is a really valuable tool. So,
within the course of a week, about 6 months ago, I got a call from my dad and a call from my mom. My mom was telling me that she loved this movie called Being Elmo, which was like an independent documentary, and my dad was talking about this movie called The Guard, which is a foreign indie film. Where like 10 years, they watched them both on Netflix, and 10 years they would never have known these movies existed. It was crazy to me to think like, oh wow, so this platform is really delivering these films to a wider audience, and it's really leveling the playing field for filmmakers who it's one click away or one button down, and it's right next to Hunger Games and big studio fare. So the revenues will sort themselves out, but just the ability to be accessible to whatever it is, 150 million homes is, I think, is great.
I think that there will be really interesting developments in sort of the realm of curation. It's as you get access to all of these movies, and you can go and you can sort of like look through online catalogs, and you have no idea what to pick. Is how people start to sort of filter through that and recommend and say, hey, look, this is something that is standout. You can have these 400 movies that you can pick from. How do you pick? And I think that people are getting very creative about how they steer traffic to those things.
One suggestion is if you have a title of your movie and you want to go VOD, have the title start with A. For obvious reasons.
And Michael, I mean, with your films, especially under that 1 million budget level, can you start to convince filmmakers that a theatrical release isn't necessarily what they should aim for? There still is a sort of psychological divide, I think, that people want their film in cinemas.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that you're seeing. I mean, it first started a few years ago when you started talking to filmmakers. Like, look, dude, we're not going to shoot this movie on film. We're going to shoot it on the red. Like, and that's the same thing you're seeing with VOD. And I think most people get it. They just want their movie to be seen. A lot of these, to successfully put your movie on Ultra VOD or VOD, you do a sort of a token theatrical. So, and a lot of the filmmakers I know live in New York and LA, so they're going to get that token week's run. They can invite their girlfriend out and party. But I do think it is critical to think, yes, it's on VOD, but how do you eventize that movie? So it's not just like we're sitting in the dark. So companies like Rooftop, companies like Kickstarter, companies that are getting people out in a social way to discuss these movies and watch them together are critical. And as filmmakers, we have to think about, how can we eventize this movie all the way from the script stage? Like, how is this movie going to be eventized so that it's not just sort of in a bubble on somebody's VOD channel?
I think some sales companies, at script stage are now pushing things on Twitter, things that wouldn't necessarily have been a sales company's job 10 years ago, or Twitter didn't exist 10 years ago, but even 2 years ago, the sales company wouldn't have been doing that. Maybe the production company would have. Are you guys involved at that level, and is it dangerous?
Actually, yes. I mean, we have this untitled Rennie Harlan picture, which is based on a true story in Russia, where in 1959, the Dialosov Mountains, these scientists woke up and they were all massacred. These very, very experienced hikers were killed and massacred from the inside out, and it was really never resolved how this happened, and it's been on the History Channel. And so we have a movie in post, basically where hikers go back today and trying to figure out what happens. And we actually hired somebody, a social media company, to sort of spread this out and to sort of start, because there's so many blogs and there are so many sites on this incident, that we did hire a company to sort of bring this really more out into the social space in terms of, asking questions and talking about it and do what people think and what really did happen, and was, the Russian government behind it, and what really was the genesis of, of their death. So the answer, I think, is yes.
One of the things that's really interesting about transmedia and building sort of awareness using sort of online sites, Twitter, things like that, is that you're actually connecting a direct link between filmmakers and their fan base, which I think is really exciting. And you can start that early in the process of something like Looper, Brian Johnson. He's got a devout fan following, and had a blog and just leaked out little bits of information. Hey guys, here's what the time machine looks like, and you can start that during the production process early on, and so you're feeding them and just building that awareness, and people are getting hungrier and hungrier to see the films, so that by the time that the movie actually comes into theaters, there's just this huge kind of naturally grown buzz that picks up momentum as you get closer. But you can actually have filmmakers talking directly to their fans and laying the groundwork to position their movie. What's their vision, so they can understand it by the time they see it. And I think that's really exciting about the online world and transmedia and starting early with the process. You can have, some filmmakers do blogs about what happened today in shooting, and they have like a little paragraph, and for people that are either excited about the movie and heard about it or like the filmmaker, maybe they just log in and it's their thing they check in the morning, and now they're really excited to see a movie when it comes out, and they tell their friends, and that builds months and months before it actually goes to theaters.
Just as an example of that, I had a conversation with a guy that runs the social media for a distributor recently, and we were talking about building a website and a social media presence for a film, and he said, it'd be great if we get this movie to 35,000 followers on Twitter. And he said, that'll probably cost about $35,000. So about $1 a person. And if you can generate those followers, those likes, those friends on Facebook for free while you're in production, while you're in development, you're saving money.
And presumably that also you can go in and show a potential buyer, this film has 50,000 views on YouTube for the trailer, and does that help, I would assume?
It does. I mean, again, a lot of times if you've pre-sold it, that the buy's already happened, but they're interested to hear what's happening with their movie. Technology can be interesting in other ways too. It's like one of the things that we've spent a lot of time building is this sort of online web portal for our movies. It's basically like a social networking site for each particular film, and it sort of faces in two directions. There's a distributor-facing part of it, and there's a producer-facing part of it. The distributor-facing part, it's like, here's a way to use technology as a tool where you can tell those distributors that either bought the movie or haven't yet, here's what's happening with it, and they can see what everyone else is doing. If France is releasing and they have a poster there You know, and the German distributor, they're not in, if you're selling it independently to each different territory, they're not in competition with one another. There can be lessons if a movie gets released, you know, positioned as a comedy in one territory and doesn't seem to work, but then it works, you know, when it's positioned as a drama in another because it's sort of somewhere in the middle. If you can create an online community where distributors can learn from one another, that helps the movie. And then technology is really interesting for you guys too, because I mean, it's something that we really believe in as a company, is pushing information out. Again, the idea that it's your movie. And if you can have a website where you can give logins to anyone associated with the movie and say, well, here's the poster from Germany. By the way, there's a change in the release date in Russia. We sort of, a lot of times, you know, we'll talk to filmmakers and they'll be like, you know, someone will tell them, hey, look, you know, congratulations on your release in Russia. And the filmmaker will say, Russia, I didn't even know it was being released. And that's something that we try to avoid by doing this, which is push that information out, and technology is really a way to do it cost effectively. It saves us time and energy, but it's also great for producers and distributors at the same time.
I'm going to switch gears slightly. We're going to open up to questions in a few minutes, but first I wanted to ask, I think it's always good to get a little bit of practical advice for people. So going to ask you, what are the worst mistakes that young producers make that you see them making?
Some of the worst mistakes, I don't know about worst, but some of the, I think, issues that everyone should be cognizant about before you set upon your journey to either, you know, embrace a script or embrace material that you want to either produce or that you want to develop, you need to think about, who is my audience for this movie? Okay? How is this movie going to get sold and marketed? Who do I think is going to pay $10 on a Saturday night and, you know, to come see my movie? When you understand that most of, you know, there's this big country, I know we're in Canada, but there's this big country between New York and LA. Okay? And what happens most of the time is, for someone to go to the movies, it has to really pique some kind of emotion that they want to actually now get a babysitter, pay a babysitter, take the time and, you know, and schedule. I'm going to go to a movie at 8 o'clock at night, pay a babysitter, maybe go to dinner. I'm going to buy some food. I'm going to buy some popcorn at the theater. And by the time they're done, they're spending a significant amount of money. And I think that three things have to happen. One, who's this movie for, and how's it going to be marketed? Two, in the material, are there characters or are there people that you want to leave that you can root for? Are there people that you want to like in this particular material? And three, I guess for us and for me, it's like, what emotion, when this movie ends, is there any particular emotion that an audience is going to leave with? Are they going to be happy? Are they going to be sad? Are they going to be pissed that they just spent $50 to come see this movie? Or what emotion is this movie going to leave you with? And I think it's really important that today, because it's so competitive and because it's such a crowded marketplace, that an emotional aftermath is really, really important.
That was mine too. I think
we checked this out.
I think one of the things is it's a practical thing that I know I had done in the past a lot, and I think people sometimes forget to do, is just ask advice, and that's it's in every aspect of it. We talked about the foreign sales side of it, but I think it relates to everything. I mean, we were going to go shoot a movie in Hungary, and we started reinventing the wheel, like looking up online and learning about the film credit, and you know what are the best production services company. And it's like, if you look up recent movies that shot there, you can, through a friend, get to someone that made a movie there that actually made mistakes on the ground, saw what it was like to work with different people. If you pick up the phone and call them and say, who should I be working with here? What are the pitfalls? They've probably made 10 mistakes. You'll make 10 mistakes. You'll pass those on to people. But like, ask people that know better about something as simple as it is, that know more than you do. Because there are people out there, and it's the easiest, fastest, and safest way to get information, whether it's about how a tax credit works, whether it's about, you know, which foreign sales companies do what, whether this financier is actually real. All of those things is pick up the phone and call people that have done it before, because they've probably made mistakes, and that's really how you learn, and they can walk you through that. So one, you learn things that you won't learn just by researching and talking to people directly, but it'll save you so much time. It'll save you so much time, and there's plenty of work to do when you're making a movie that becomes a very valuable thing.
Yeah, I think so. Mine was gonna
Up to you.
be mine was gonna be get help, but I think I agree with that totally. I think the one thing that and Jerry and Milan touched on this is that a lot of filmmakers are coming to me now and saying, look, I've got this script. I've taken it around to sort of companies in LA that have studio deals, and they're all telling me your movie doesn't cost enough. I can only support a $60 million movie, or I can't justify this movie. It's like that's the craziest mentality. Just go make it for cheap. I mean, obviously it's a no-brainer coming from me, but I think a lot of people are waiting around trying to get that, even if it's a $25 million movie or that $6 million movie. Figure out the way to go do it for $600,000. Look at Sundance this year. The most profitable film on Sundance this year was The Sessions, or as it was called, The Surrogate. It's a $700,000 movie. It's got a couple movie stars in it. It's got 3 good locations, and it has heart. It's charming, and it's sold, and it's going to do well. So I just think, just go do it. Don't wait around.
Okay, I think that's a good time to maybe take a question or two, if somebody, gentleman here.
Are you scouting talent?
I cannot hear you.
So you're asking, are you scouting talent in Europe?
Are we scouting talent in Europe? I think everybody, you're not doing your job if you're not paying attention as to, as to what talent is emerging throughout the world. And I think the trades, especially screen, does a really good job of, keeping everybody abreast of what's really happening internationally, who's emerging from film festivals. And by the way, as we all know, there's a film festival every day of the year somewhere. Okay, and you have to pay attention, and so therefore the short answer is yes.
I mean, so you work a bit with foreign language film, right? I mean, how much can you do with foreign language?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I mean, it's not something we do often. I mean, we have the Pedro Almodovar films. His last one, the one that he's working on now. That's kind of a little bit of a different animal. We always look for them. Generally, they end up being a little too small, but there could be great ideas there. Or if it's just something that, again, if it's special and distinctive. I mean, every time we make a rule, we end up breaking it, which is why we kind of stopped doing it. I think when we started the company, we said we're not going to buy any books the first 12 months. It's long lead development. We're not going to do it. And 4 months later, we'd bought 3 books. So it's like don't ever like to say, hey, we won't do foreign language films. We do have some of them. It's just a rare. Again, it goes back to what we were talking about, the bullseye. If you find it, yes, but the target's like this as opposed to, a domestic target, which is much, much bigger.